Ferrari's made one of the wackiest versions of one of their absolutely craziest cars. So we followed suit. This is the Ferrari SF90 XX. And the crazy thing about this is the fact that it's actually road legal. An XX model for the road. That is crazy. Now, if you're not familiar with the XX nomenclature for Ferrari, basically those are only track-orientated cars. These cars belong on the track. If you happen to be one of the lucky owners to have one, you order it to a track, you go there, drive it, and you leave without the car until you repeat the process. This, for all practical intents and purposes, is a McLaren Senna GTR with number plates. Now, when we come to cars like this, hypercars, supercars, in this category, three things are very, very important. That is power, weight, and aero. But let's go through them with this car, because power, it's only up 30 horses from the standard OEM SF90. So that's not a big difference, right? Weight, it's 10 kilograms lighter than the SF90 Assetto Fiorano. So really, basically, it's all up to aero. I mean, 530 kilograms of downforce is what it's going to give you at about 250 kilometers per hour. That doesn't sound little unless you compare it, for example, with the McLaren Senna, which will do 800, or the GTR, which will do 1,000. Nevertheless, let's concentrate on the XX and its aero. First of all, in the front, you've got that splitter. It's bigger, it's wider, and it's more aggressive, and it's slightly lower. And funny enough, as the name suggests, it splits the air that hits the car from the front, chasing some of it through the S-ducts and some of it underneath the car, which has completely been redesigned, so it sucks the car down onto the ground. Now, the rest of that air hits the big mouth S-ducts, which is a very famous thing for the Ferraris. You've seen that on previous models. Chases some of the air through the car and then over the car in that familiar S-duct fashion. I love the concave bits here on the bonnet, which is where some of that S-duct air is going over. Sort of reminiscent a little bit like what we've seen on the Pro Sangue films, right? But not all the air goes there. Some of it actually goes into the wheel arches, and that is interesting. Let's talk about that for a little bit. Ferrari said that there's a lot of air that builds up inside of the wheel arches, especially also hot air. Think the massive carbon ceramic brake discs over there. And they need to somehow get rid of that hot air. So what Ferrari has done is put some slits in the fenders, front and rear. That's really particularly interesting because it's something we've been doing at Novitec for a good couple of years. Now, speaking of wheel arches and wheels, one might ask oneself the question, what do we as Novitec actually do to a car like this that is almost complete? Well, not that much. We feel that when a manufacturer has done such a fantastic job, we don't necessarily need to go and prove ourselves by slapping on 1,000 things on this car. So we only have really done three major things. That is the wheels, the suspension, and the exhaust. And because those are the same mirrors that you get on the SF90 OEM, you can also get the mirror caps from us. Now, the wheels on this, please do yourself a favor and go and have a look at the OEM wheels. It's a little bit odd to see the relationship that they have with the chassis. They sort of married on the inside of the wheel arch. It just looks completely odd. I love the NF11s and the Novitec wheels, 21 inch in the front, 22 inch in the back. The fact that they just sit completely flush with the rest of the bodyworks. That looks so good. Now, in case you don't want the NF10 or NF11 wheels from us and you'd like to keep the OEM look, but you want to have them flush with the bodyworks, you can get the Spaces from us. I just love this look with the center lock. It's so sexy. Now, another thing that you'd realize if you look at the OEM version is that it kind of rides quite high. It looks like bocked up a bit. This, with the Novitec springs, just looks perfect. Aesthetically, it makes a big difference, riding about 2 centimeters lower than the standard one. But what it does for the ride quality, and I haven't driven this car and we won't, unfortunately, it's a client's car, but if it does anything as much as it did for the Pro Sangue, which is 2.5 centimeters lower, then I promise you it's going to be a very good thing for this SF90 XX. As a matter of fact, when I did some research, there were some test drivers that even said that they were surprised at how soft the suspension felt for the SF90 XX. And I don't want to say that like it's a bad thing, because this is a road-going version of a race car. So they have to marry both of those concepts, I suppose. Anyways, let's get back to the aero. There's another S-duct system in this car, patented by Ferrari, and that hits the center of the car, where you have the T-tray of the 296. That's where the air enters this car, and you see those two nostrils on the top of the bonnet. That's where it exits. Now, in between there is actually the cooling system for the hybrid system of this car. So that's an interesting way in which they've taken care of cooling that before that hot air gets thrown towards the rear of the car. Speaking of which, let's just turn it around. Oh, now that is, in my opinion, probably one of the sexiest rears I have seen on a supercar in the last couple of years. I find it particularly sexy, especially because it bears hardly any resemblance to the OEM SF90. And with that horizon light stretching from left to right through the back of that car, and the massive diffuser at the back, it's completely sexy. You might have actually realized there's a spot of a little wing there at the back. Not so little at all, carbon fiber from Ferrari, and it's a fixed wing. As a matter of fact, Ferrari said that that is the first time and probably one of the biggest wings that they've attached fixed wings on a standard road-going Ferrari since the F50 days. Boah, those were days. This, in my opinion, pays a little bit of tribute to the F50. Underneath it is a moving component. It's the shut of gurney, as they call it, and that sort of moves up and down, similar to what we see in some of the active aero bits on the McLarens, but also on the 296, that little part at the back that moves up and down. Similar in this, just more accentuated, giving you more drag or less drag depending on what you really need when you drive it. Now, collectively, all the aero at the back, Ferrari says 315 kilograms of downforce is what all of that is going to give you. I just think it looks really cool, and it's quite a bold thing, Ferrari, to slap that on the back of an SF90. At the back is also our exhaust system. First thing you might notice is that we don't have the carbon fiber exhaust tips that you know from many of our other Novitec Ferraris. The reason for that is because this is a limited edition. They only make a few of these, and there's this huge piece of mesh at the back, which would completely need to be replaced, because otherwise the diameter, the greater diameter of the tail tips won't fit in there. So we've had to keep the tail tips OEM, but the rest of the exhaust is possible to have that changed. This is a client's car, and they've opted just for the Novitec rear muffler, which is going to give it a much nicer sound than the OEM version. But you can have a more hardcore version of that. Now, in order to give you an idea of what that's going to sound like, we're going to play you a clip right now. I think that roundabout just sums up everything we had to say about this car. Which means we get to the verdict of the SF90 XX. In my personal opinion, it's completely and utterly superfluous and unnecessary, which is also exactly why we absolutely love it. Thank you so much for joining us in this video. If you guys want to follow us on YouTube, then feel free to subscribe. Hit the little notification bell so you get notified every time we upload a new video. And if you want, you can follow us on Instagram and on TikTok. Me personally, Bjorn Koch, or Novitec at the Novitec Group. Sure, until then, hasta la vista. See you in the next one. Ciao.